Hello, everybody. This is Coresair Mack, one of the wellness professionals here at Elgin Community College. And today we are going to talk about boundaries. All right, so sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. So ultimately, what are we going to be going over today? First, we're going to go over what are boundaries. After that, we're going to take a look at the difference between healthy and toxic boundaries. Also, take a look at how to create boundaries as well as explaining boundary levels as well. When we talk about personal boundaries versus setting boundaries for a group of people. So, first, what are boundaries? So, boundaries essentially are there to do two things. They're there to keep you safe, and they're there to make sure you aren't being taken advantage of. So, essentially, those are what boundaries are. They're there to protect you in every type of relationship. And again, you should have boundaries in every relationship that you have, whether that's a working relationship, whether that's a friendship or a romantic relationship, whether that's a relationship with family, friends, or what have you. You should have boundaries in every relationship that you have. So now let's go over the difference between healthy and toxic boundaries. So healthy boundaries, they make sure that you don't take advantage of people and to make sure other people don't take advantage of you, right? Those are setting healthy boundaries versus toxic boundaries, right? Toxic boundaries take advantage of people. So I gave a small example here. Again, a healthy boundary, give me one check-in, text, or call a day versus a toxic boundary, give me a check-in, text, or call every hour on the hour, right? Because ultimately, healthy boundaries, they aren't trying to control you. And with that not being control, you're not taking advantage of the person versus toxic boundaries, they are there to try and control you. And if you're trying to control the person, you are definitely taking advantage of them. So again, healthy boundaries, you're not trying to control anybody. Toxic boundaries, you are trying to control someone. With that being said, this last bullet point is important. If you are not comfortable with the boundary that someone sets for you, then you shouldn't form a relationship with them in the first place, and vice versa. Because ultimately, again, if a realistic, healthy boundary might seem toxic to someone else, and a toxic boundary someone else might seem realistic and healthy to that individual. And if neither of you are willing to compromise to what you both, not just one individual person, but what you both are comfortable with, then ultimately those relationships shouldn't be forming in the first place. Right? I'm not saying that you should be mean, rude, or disrespectful to each other, right? Of course, keep things civil and cordial. But again, a relationship really shouldn't be forming. And after that, now we take a look at how do we create boundaries. So basically, to start off, we work off of a few things. So those few things to start off with would be A, what you feel uncomfortable with in a relationship, whether that's a friendship, a workplace relationship, a romantic or intimate relationship, or what have you. Prior red flags and friendships and relationships that you've had in the past, as well as prior red flags that you've seen in other individuals' relationships or friendships. Right? We can start there. And then after that, as we get to know the individual or group of people, then we could create more boundaries based off of those interactions that we enjoy and that we don't enjoy. But that's how we essentially create boundaries. We got to take a look to see what we're uncomfortable with to make sure that doesn't happen in that relationship, whether that's a friendship or a romantic or intimate relationship. And then we could work off of the red flags as well. So with that being said, there are different ways to implement those boundaries. So you can implement them on a per person basis or in a group or level basis. So first, we're going to go over the per person basis. So you develop a set of boundaries by the individual person. And again, some of those boundaries may overlap if you go person by person, but those boundaries are usually based on what you don't like slash cannot stand about the person. And again, going back to how we create boundaries, first things first, we go off of what we're uncomfortable with, right? So, for example, if we're uncomfortable with someone just randomly eating our food, then we create a boundary based off of that. And ultimately, if we know that's a person, or we try to create a relationship with a person that does that, we set that boundary in place saying, hey, you cannot eat off of my plate, or I don't want you eating any of my food. That's something that I don't want you to do, and that's a boundary I do not want you to cross. Right. If they cross that boundary, then ultimately you can have a conversation with them if you choose to. And if that conversation doesn't end well or compromise isn't had by that, then ultimately they're not worth forming a relationship from. So again, that doesn't mean be mean or disrespectful. Of course, be nice and cordial, but ultimately we know that that person isn't worth forming a relationship with. And again, we can do this person by person. Like I mentioned, we can start with what we're uncomfortable with. Then as we get to know the person, we see some of their green flags and their red flags. And then we can start creating individual boundaries based off of those red flags. Because ultimately, we want to make sure that we're safe and that we're being protected. So that's how you do it on a per person basis. All right, next up, we take a look at the different levels. So here we could put a group of people in a level and create boundaries for that specific group. So here's an example that I did, the example that I use with a lot of students and clients that I help. We go off of 5 different levels. In level 1, again, this is an example. You can label these levels any way you want to, but with level 1, that's where we put everyone. All right, and with everyone, these boundaries are super strict, right? So for example, in this level, unless you want to do it out of the kindness of your heart, you don't loan anybody any money, you don't give them any rides, you don't invite them to your house or anything like that, right? You don't even let them borrow your phone because again, we don't know them. And if we don't know them, anything can happen. So better in this instance, safe than sorry. And then level 2, again, these boundaries are still strict, but we're loosening the reins just a little bit. So in level 2, we could potentially loan someone $5, but expect them to pay us back. We could potentially give someone a ride for up to 5 miles, but then we have to expect them to do the same thing for us, right? And so on and so forth. And then we go to level 3, again, minimally strict. So be willing to loan more money, give more rides, even potentially let them come over to your house or place where you live. And again, level 4, boundaries are loose, and level 5, boundaries are really loose. And again, that's just an example. They can be whatever it is that you choose to be. But this helps you get an idea of the different levels and where to place people. And then I give an example, again, with the money situation here. Level 1, again, don't give any money. Again, that's for everybody because I don't know you. And unless I'm doing it out of the kindness of my heart, you're not getting any money from me. Level 2, on the other hand, okay, we're okay with giving them $5, but they must pay us back before we give them any more money. Because again, we're still forming that trust, we're still building that trust. And ultimately, that is what we're comfortable with. And again, it doesn't have to be $5 for you. It just depends on what you're comfortable with. Again, this is just an example. And then level 3, being okay with giving them $50. Level 4, being okay with giving them $200. And again, this time without the expectation of getting paid back because we trust them that much to know that they would do the same thing for us if we need it. Again, level 5, giving them up to $5,000 without the expectation of getting paid back. Again, because we 100% trust them at this point. We know that they wouldn't do anything to screw us over. So we know that they would loan us $5,000 if we really needed it without that expectation too. Again, that's just an example. You guys could put whatever you want in the different levels, but know that level 1, you're super strict. You go down to level 5, you're super relaxed. And again, how do we move someone to different levels? And just like saying here, to move to the next level, you do need trust. And what is trust? Trust is time times commitment. If there's not one or the other, trust cannot be formed. And I give an example here. So to move someone to the friends level from the everyone level, you would need to talk to that individual at least once a week for the next 2 to 3 months. Again, that shows time and that shows commitment. And again, this is just an example. It could be whatever it is for you, but for this example, you need to commit to talking to me at least once a week for the next 2 to 3 months. Again, time, 2 to 3 months commitment once a week. And if you consistently do that, then that trust will build. And if that trust builds, then you're okay with moving that person down to the next level. And again, to move to best friends, you need to talk to me at least 2 to 3 times a week for the next 4 to 6 months and share something personal about yourself. Because in this instance, we are upping the commitment here. True, the time can be whatever you want to be, but if you're moving down to a new level, the commitment needs to be higher. So instead of just talking to someone, now they need to share something personal about them. And also, this could be vice versa. if someone wants to move you down, you would need to show time and commitment as well, because ultimately that friendship slash relationship will form, that foundation will build and solidify, and ultimately that trust will essentially again build and be there. And also, let's say they break that time or commitment, right? And they're not consistent with it. Then you can easily move them back to a higher level, whether that's level 2 or level 1. Because true, you're the one that controls when you move that person down to another level. So you also control if you move them back up to another level at the same time as well. Alrighty, other than that, that is about it. All right, thank you guys very much for listening to this video. Again, if you guys do want to schedule an appointment, feel free to either give us a call at 847-214-7390. You can email us at studentwellness@elgin.edu, or you can go through Access ECC to schedule an appointment online. And again, those three things are for if you are an ECC student. All right, other than that, this is Coresair Mack, one of the wellness professionals signing out, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.